know, one of the things we talk about on this show, probably more than anything, is the combined topic of marriage and divorce, relationships. I also tell you how to avoid relationships and marriage. Yeah, it's my opinion, and I'm no professional. It's my opinion that there's very little in it for guys to get married at all. From what I can tell, and our guest this hour maybe can shed some light on this, from what I can tell, the benefits to a man are shrinking. I mean, you can pretty much get all of the benefits of being married without being there. Sex, companionship. People have children without being married. I mean, what's in it for a guy to even get married? Think about that. I talk to guys about this all the time. Like, what are you getting out of this? Besides signing a contract, agreeing to hand over half or more of everything you earn, and copious amounts of future income. But what's in it for you? Well, our guest is an attorney, Mark Barondis. He wrote a book called What Were You Thinking?, where he talked to a number of high-profile people who have been divorced and have had these experiences like the ones we talk about on the air, and I welcome you to the program. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Tom.
Is there a benefit to a man to get married?
Well, I think it depends on the man, but yes, there are certain benefits. Such benefits would be the allegiance, the camaraderie, and a lifetime commitment that is not really present in a living together type situation.
Of course, we all know nowadays marriage doesn't guarantee allegiance.
No, of course not. But neither does living together. I mean,
exactly.
Fidelity is something that is dependent just on each party.
Yes. Well, that's my point. If marriage can't guarantee it, why get married? If living together can't guarantee it, if marriage can't guarantee it, why sign a contract? And that's what this is about. It's a contract where you're agreeing to hand over half of what you've earned. Now, sure, you might be with somebody else who works, and it goes both ways. But the reality is most men make more money than the women they're with. And many women choose to work part-time or flex-time, or they stomp it down to have kids or whatever. So the bottom line is guys essentially are signing away future income.
Well, I think that I have to disagree with you on one point, that being that you're automatically signing over half of what you earn. If you're signing over half of what you earn, you have a very bad lawyer. In California, which is a community property jurisdiction, you have a 50% division on community property. There is no such 50% division on income.
So what is community property then? Community
property is anything that is acquired during the course of the marriage up through the date of separation, or in some instances and in some states up through the date of divorce.
But isn't in absence of a prenuptial agreement, isn't income by both parties community property?
Well, to the extent that it is saved, yes. To the extent that it is not saved, no, it's not. It's gone. It's been expended.
But then the property that's been purchased is community property.
No question.
And then that gets divided. Well, so you're either dividing the income or the items purchased with the income.
But if you take a situation where I'm earning, say, $1 million a year, you're not automatically entitled as my former spouse to $500,000 per year, especially in the period after the date of the separation.
Right. But during the marriage?
During the marriage, there's no entitlement whatsoever. It's just part of the community. It's there.
So what you're saying is, as long as you spend everything you make, you don't have to worry about splitting.
That's absolutely correct. Spend it all, because that way you don't have to divide it up in the end.
Oh, my God. Now, let's talk about people who get married. This is a business arrangement. People love to talk about it as being romance, and it's unromantic to talk about the business end of it. Last I looked, when you get a marriage certificate in the state of California, just like when you form a corporation, they don't just hand it to you after you get married. They send it to Sacramento, where it receives the raised seal of the Secretary of State of the state of California, and then it is mailed to you or your attorney or whatever. So, in essence, you are forming a corporation, aren't you?
Well, all that the seal is a validation of the state of the issuance of the license. Mm-hmm. It's not a corporation that you're forming. If it is, then many times it would become a bankrupt corporation, or one at least under Chapter 11.
Well, it's a different kind of corporation, because I do know that if let's say you had a marriage of equals, or like a corporation where there was a merger, a Daimler Chrysler, something like that, and let's say they spun off Chrysler. Usually, when companies break up, they're not making payments for years and years and years into the future, like alimony payments, are they?
Right. No, of course they're not, which means that they're not a corporation.
Right.
I mean, it's a separate deal. I mean, if you want to get into the alimony issue, that in and of itself is probably the greatest heartache faced by any, at least usually male. There's nothing that is feared more or despised more than alimony.
Is there a way to escape paying alimony?
The only way to escape it, or excuse me, there's two ways to escape it. Don't get married, which is the preferable way, and number two, a prenuptial agreement.
And prenups, of course, you read all these articles. There was that woman who was married to the guy from General Electric Finance Division who was on the cover of Fortune magazine, and she was chasing down her husband. She wanted a bigger piece of the pie. And there are always people talking about trying to overturn prenuptial or postnuptial agreements. Is that happening?
Well, it does happen, and the reason that it happens is that the execution of the agreement has been ineffective. The mistakes that people typically make in executing a prenuptial agreement are that they fail to have both sides properly represented by competent counsel, or number two, there's not a proper disclosure and full and fair disclosure of all of the assets which would have been subject to allocation at the time of the marriage. What I tell people to do, and what I in fact do, is to have any prenuptial agreement executed in front of a videographer. Actually have video cameras in the room when the person is signing it and run them through a litany of questions. Do you understand what the document is that you're signing? This is a prenuptial agreement. Do you understand that you're going to be waiving any right to alimony? Do you understand that even if you're married for 23 and a half years, you're still not getting any alimony? Once you get that scene on tape, it's awful hard to turn over, especially when the other lawyer for that party is present on the tape.
Mm-hmm. So there's a cost involved in that, but it's I imagine minuscule.
It's minuscule compared to it's less than 1 month's alimony. Let's put it that way.
And the person asking the questions would be like a retired judge?
No, it would just be me. It would be me, or it would be the other attorney.
Yeah.
I would have the other attorney question their own client. Is this what you want to do? Are you sure you want to do? Do you understand that you don't have to get married? Do you understand that if you do get married, you're waiving rights that you would receive under California law? I mean, it's very simple and very effective.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people try to skip that. They don't want to discuss that. They don't want to get into that. In fact, I would say most people get into marriage without discussing any of the financial issues, including how much debt the other person has, or how money is spent or saved or invested. And many times people find this stuff out to their horror after they get married.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I recommend to everyone that if you're really considering marriage, that you should hire a private investigator. You should get...
Really?
Absolutely. You should get the goods on your intended. Because if you do that, you won't be subject to any surprises. If they get upset that you've done it, explain to them the reason that you've been involved in prior relationships and been burned and hurt, and you love him or her so much that this was the only way you could be sure, or keep the information to yourself.
Should you get married without a prenup?
Well, I think that if you're considering a prenuptial agreement as part of the marriage, that you should reconsider who it is that you're marrying. Because in essence, what you're stating is that you have a doubt in your mind that your marriage is going to last. And to me, that's more important than the agreement itself.
Of course, you have to look at the odds.
The odds are that you're going to get a divorce.
1 in 2 in the United States get divorced, and from what I understand in California, 2 of 3 end up getting a divorce. And
for second marriages, it's 70%.
Yeah, and the odds of my getting hit by a car are much lower than that, and yet I have car insurance.
That's correct.
So why wouldn't I want to have a prenuptial agreement, even if I think the other person is just wonderful?
Because it's a very difficult topic for many people to broach. Just as you've already pointed out. Most people don't want to talk about it. What do you mean you want me to execute a prenuptial agreement? You don't love me. You don't need me. These are, and then the man starts backtracking. And I don't mean to be chauvinistic here. A woman could also have substantial wealth that they're seeking to protect.
Yeah, they're the ones who are not against prenuptial agreements. Women love to say the prenuptial agreements are unromantic unless they have assets, and then all of a sudden they are businesswomen.
They're essential. They're a necessary document.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk a bit about younger couples. I get these guys in the military, a lot of them. Guys who are military bases almost uniformly get married to somebody they just met 3 months ago, 6 months ago, the day they were being deployed or whatever. And then later they find out, after they come back after a 6-month deployment or a 1-year deployment, they find out that the woman has been sleeping with all the other guys on the base, and they have hooked into all of the benefits, the child benefits, the retirement benefits, whatever, and then they end up getting divorced at 21, 22, and essentially are in hock to this woman for the rest of their lives.
Well, it's a point that I talk about in the book, and the young age that most people marry is reprehensible. People at age 18, 19, 20, 21, they do not have the understanding of the obligations and the responsibilities and the commitment that's involved in marriage, or the consequences of what is involved in marriage. We don't let people drive until they turn 16 or 18, depending on where you live. We don't let people vote until they're 18. We don't let people drink until they're 21. But we're going to allow them to enter into the most dangerous activity of all, which is marriage, at ages, I think in Mississippi you can do it at age 12. At other states you can do it at age 15. And, of course, in all states you can do it at age 18.
It's outrageous. We'll take a break. We will come back. Our guest, Mark Barondis, is a divorce attorney. He deals with these issues. His book is called What Were You Thinking? Your telephone call's coming up.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM.
All you women up there that are listening to the show, stop giving Tom a hard time. This man is telling you guys the truth.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
The Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number here. Our guest attorney, Mark Barondis, his book is called What Were You Thinking? And we're talking about marriage, divorce, prenups, relationships, all of that. We talked on this program more than once about the technology that's out there to try to nail a cheating spouse. Among them, of course, the simple ones, people hacking into your email to check and see who you've been talking to. And the more evil ones that are out there nowadays, spy software packages, where you're not just looking at email, you can see every keystroke from the computer, every password, every instant message, every chat, everything that's been going on. And it has a little legal disclaimer at the beginning that you're not supposed to install the software without telling the other person. But come on, what are people buying this for?
Well, of course. And, one of my favorites, Tom, is the software that you insert into the drive, and within 10, 15 minutes, you have the passwords for every account that is on the computer. Mm-hmm. It just automatically deciphers the passwords, which to me is amazing.
Yeah. So what do you suggest to people? Is technology your friend or your enemy in America?
It's both. It's your friend if you're trying to catch someone that is doing something wrong. And people on the computer have this feeling that they're safe. And it's amazing. The computer is the worst thing in the world that you can use to pursue a relationship, because everything is left. And even when you think you've erased it, you still haven't erased it. And if you're smart enough, you can pull it all off of there. So in that respect, it's your friend, and in that respect, it's your enemy.
There is even a spy software that, unlike the software that you install on your own computer, you can actually email it to somebody, and it will install itself without them knowing it. And suddenly, by email, you are receiving all of their emails, all of their chats, all of their instant messages.
Yeah, well, the point here is don't be a schmuck. Don't be using the computer to conduct an illicit relationship.
Yeah.
If you do, then you're going to bear the problems that are attendant to having done so.
But divorce laws have changed over the years. Is there any benefit to finding out your spouse is cheating, like when you're going to get divorced?
Well, there is a benefit insofar as psychologically the judge has a hard time divesting it, especially when there's children involved and if they're young children. But other than that, unless you're in a fault jurisdiction, and many of your listeners are in fault jurisdictions where that's alive and well, then it's really not of any benefit. And if there is fault, then you usually have to look for some sort of an economic tie. In other words, I'm going out and I'm spending money on the girlfriend, marital money or community property money. And as a result of that, that has a negative monetary impact on the family. But absent that, no, fault really isn't that important.
Let's take some calls here with our guest, Mark Barondis. His book is called What Were You Thinking? 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. It's Joey on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm okay, Joey.
Good. I just wanted to call because I signed a prenup, and I was actually really glad that my fiancé at the time mentioned it, and it was actually only a week before the wedding, and he was kind of freaking out, and I just kind of sat down and I said, what the hell is wrong? What's going on? And he just really seriously looked at me and said, I am so scared of losing everything I've worked so hard for.
Well, I guess the question is, are you going to really like that prenuptial agreement when it comes time to implement it? I doubt that you will, and you'll probably say that it was executed a week before your wedding, that you were under duress and undue influence, and you'll seek to set it aside. So just because you feel positive about it right now, when the circumstances change, I bet you won't feel so positive.
But I don't understand why I should be entitled to his money. I guess that's what I mean, I don't understand that.
Now, you bring up a very interesting point. It's always assumed that if a man is successful while he's married, it's always assumed that the woman somehow played a part in that success or was his muse, inspired him, whatever. Many women do inspire men and help them. There are other women who actually get in the way of a man. They are an irritant. They try to keep him from staying out late, going to dinner with clients, or traveling on the road places, or get annoyed when the phone rings at home and it's somebody trying to do business. There are many women who are not helpful at all, and yet they are entitled to the same benefits as women who are helpful.
Well, see, the problem here is that that's where community property is really the worst system in the world, I think. While it does make it easy that you don't have to use your brain, you get half of everything, it does not account for those situations. If your wife is just a complete bitch and does nothing to help you, then she's still going to get the exact same thing as if she was loving, supportive, gave you back rubs while you were laboring over the computer to form that internet company. That's where the problem is. In fault jurisdictions, in equitable distribution jurisdictions, all that would be taken into consideration.
So how do you get around that, or do you?
The only way you can get around it, again, is through a prenuptial agreement or not getting married. Those are the only two solutions.
I happen to believe, as someone who has been married and divorced 4 times, that men have to stand up and say, look, you're either going to sign this or we are not getting married, and you really have no choice.
Well, I mentioned in the book, under the discussion about prenuptial agreements, that you should, at the first date, mention a prenuptial agreement, that you were involved in a very bad relationship and you would never even consider marriage without a prenuptial agreement. And you should repeat that, say, every 3 dates until the time that prenuptial agreement is signed. Because
not until after you've had sex at least once.
Well, you should have sex once. Yeah,
yes.
That's a correction. I didn't point that out in the book, but you're absolutely right. Always have sex first.
Never say it before you've had sex.
That's right. But you do need to familiarize your prospective spouse with the concept that you're not getting married without the prenuptial. To do what the caller's fiancé did the 1 week before is crazy, because it's just opening him up to possible attack at the time that their marriage breaks down.
Let's say hi to Cal on the Tom Leykis show from Mark Barondis. Hello.
Tom Leykis, what's going on?
Not much, Cal.
Mark, either way, it doesn't matter to you because you're going to make money at the end of the day no matter what happens with marriage. But Went was the guy at General Electric, and then his boss, Jack Welch, got hammered about 5 years later, and that made a lot of news, too. The thing I'm curious about is that there was a law introduced 3 years ago in the California State Legislature to enact sort of a marriage education / full disclosure act that died in committee because of some woman's advocacy group applying the clamps. And it occurred to me that women are a significant portion of the legal profession as far as being lawyers and judges. And so, of course, needless to say, the system works just fine as it is for women when it comes to the end of things. And I wonder if you'd speak to that. The other thing was, no prenup is going to survive the birth of a child because, needless to say, the lawyer is going to go after you through the child. And since a woman doesn't have to itemize, there's no incentive for her to not breed, so to speak. I don't think marriage works for what men and women.
When he says not itemize, he means like when you're paying child support. Exactly. Unlike when the IRS calls you in for an audit and you bring in that shoebox of every little piece of paper you've ever had.
You have to know everything.
Women generally don't have to account for how they spend that money. And if you are like if you're Jay-Z and you're paying or Puffy Combs and you're paying $30,000-$40,000 a month, it doesn't cost $30,000-$40,000 a month to raise a child.
Not even.
How much of that money is going to purses and shoes and trips to Cancun. Well, not Cancun right now, but, Cabo.
Well, you're correct again, Tom, but the problem here with what the caller is saying is for most people, for most wage earners, there's child support guidelines that are in effect. And there's no itemization of what the money is for or anything else. The state has already presupposed that if you're earning this amount of money and your spouse or the mother of the child is earning X amount of money, this is the amount that you're going to be paying in terms of child support. In terms of the prenuptial agreement not having any effect on the issue of child support, you can't do anything in a prenuptial agreement with respect to the child except provide for extra benefits. If I sign a prenuptial agreement that says I will pay for the college education of any children that are born, then that's going to be enforceable. But if I sign an agreement that says I'm going to get custody of the children when they're born, that's unenforceable, because you cannot assume the rights of the court with respect to the allocation of the children.
Another misconception people have, because we talk about this all the time on the air, is that you could put in a prenup. Well, you can put anything in, I guess, but that it would be enforceable. That you could put in, we're not having any children.
It's asinine.
Yeah, it's a complete waste of your time and money.
It's ridiculous.
It's Adam on the Tom Leykis Show. Mark Barondis is our guest. His book is called What Were You Thinking? Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
Let me just make this short and sweet. My battery's about to die on my phone. The way...
There he goes.
I think it died.
He was right. Boris, you're on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hi, Dad. How's it going?
Going okay, son. It's a son I never had. And never paid child support for either. Go ahead.
Been listening to your show for ages, and both me and my girlfriend, we're starting to get a little bit serious. We've been dating for a couple of years, and she moved in recently into my condo, which I bought about 3-4 years ago. And we're starting to talk about marriage and things like that, and I really hate the prenup because it, as you guys mentioned before, it kind of puts in the doubt that the marriage is not going to last.
Well, the odds are at least 1 in 2 that you're going to get divorced. What do you mean puts in the doubt? The doubt is there.
It's the underlying presumption of the relationship is that your marriage will probably fail, especially if you are considering that prenuptial agreement. That means something in your subconscious or in your conscious is telling you this is not going to work, so I need my exit strategy.
But, of course, we know going in, even if the other person is the loveliest person in the world, wonderful, spectacular, 1 in 2 marriages fail. Because that could mean in 5 years someone's got postpartum depression and has an affair with somebody she works with, or that could mean she just gets tired of it, or that could mean that the guy who's there is more dedicated to his career than he thought he would be, and he's never home, and even though they loved each other very much at the beginning. So the fact is, things happen. And the result is that at least half of us who get married end up getting divorced, even if we have no real doubt today. The doubt is in the statistics, isn't it?
People always think that it's somebody else. They never think that they're the ones, that they're the part of the 50%. It's always, it's Tom's going to get the divorce, not me. And that's where people are wrong.
All right, Boris, thank you for the call.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM.
I'm not asking somebody to support me. I'm asking somebody to be my better half.
More intelligent than you are.
Yeah, I just want a guy to be my equal. It'd be great if he made more money than I
got your
did.
equal right here.
Yeah, I bet you do.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
From Los Angeles, the Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. The book is What Were You Thinking? And we're talking about marriage and prenups and relationships and what you need to know to cover your legal ass. You have a chapter in here talking about how to catch a spouse cheating using the Internet, using software.
High-tech love. It kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. I thought it would be helpful to your listeners or the readers of the book to actually get step-by-step instructions about how you can catch your spouse on the computer, and also, to be fair, how you can defend against being caught on the computer. So, depending on which way you want to go, the book will help you either way.
Oh, very good. There are people who actually hire consultants for this kind of thing, aren't there?
There are, and I just avoided the whole need for hiring a consultant. All you have to do is get the book, and then you can see how to do it.
Now, we have a caller who's asking about this very question. Pat, what did you want to ask?
I wanted to ask specifically about the technology, and not only am I a dog using the computer to pursue my thing, but I'm starting a
You mean to pursue chicks?
Yes.
Okay, you're pursuing chicks.
And,
are you married?
So
are you married?
I am married.
Okay.
Yeah. So is there a program or a procedure to go through to make sure that nobody is monitoring my online activities? What I use is, I think it's called like an internet eraser that automatically goes through and clears all the things that I don't want to have to clear for me. Aside from that, is there anything that I can use to check, find out if somebody is using a program like you talk of against me?
You can certainly get the keylogging type software, the spyware software that will show whether or not any of those programs are actually running. And
so
again,
if I run a spyware program regularly...
Well, don't call it a spyware program. That's different. This is spy software. Spyware is a software that's used by websites.
I use Spy Sweeper. I'm sorry, Tom.
Yeah. I want to make this clear, though, to the people out there. Spyware is that's the software that's installed without your knowledge by websites you visit to try to track your internet usage for advertising purposes, and it sometimes causes pop-ups on your screen and stuff.
Yeah.
We're not talking about spyware. We're talking about spy software, which is software that logs the keystrokes of whoever uses the computer, so you can check back and see what passwords people are using, what websites they're looking at, who they're chatting with. I mean, everything. It's all there.
Correct. And Tom, guest is Mark, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark, I can't wait to buy your book. It sounds great. But is there a specific program that I can purchase and run on my machines to make sure that nobody is monitoring?
What I did in the book was to point out the words that you could put in a Google search to come up with that very information. I just didn't want to be advertising for specific programs because those things change, and if you just do what I said in the book, then you'll be fine.
Well, not only that, aren't there legal concerns about spying on somebody, even in your own home?
Yeah, there was a recent case out of Florida, actually, where a wife got in an awful lot of trouble for using one of these very programs, and it's talked about in the book as well. It had just gone to decision right before the publication of the book, but you've got to be extremely careful in terms of what is legal and what is not legal in terms of monitoring these types of communications.
As an attorney, another good reason you didn't include the names of any of the software in your book.
That's right.
Julie on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, I was divorced in '96, have 3 children, and he asked me to sign a quitclaim deed on our home. So I did. I didn't know what it was. I just wanted away from him, so I signed it. We've been back together since '98, living as husband and wife. If we were to go back to court now, would we have to go through a divorce? And what are my legal rights? I mean, we've built a business since we've been back together. Do I?
Well, I would think that you'd want to get him to voluntarily sign back over another quitclaim deed to you, or to execute.
He won't do that.
Well, then that should tell you something about where your relationship's going. You're going to be divorced at some point in the future. You understand that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, well, we are already legally divorced. We just live as husband and wife. But I mean, he's very careful. He won't put me on health insurance because.
Well, why are you with this guy then?
Well, I mean, it works out for us.
I love him.
Yeah. I do, and.
Well, he doesn't. I got to tell you, he doesn't love you. He may say those words, but he doesn't love you, and that's something that you need to understand.
I mean, he told me he would get married if I would sign a prenup.
Okay.
Signing over the business and all that. And
well, there you go again. Another form of him attesting to you his undying love. I mean, this guy sounds...
Isn't it possible he just wants to insure against what could happen in the future and what has already happened in the past?
Well, I mean, see, like last time when I divorced him, I gave him everything. I just wanted my kids. I walked away. I just wanted away from him. And then when we got back together, I mean, we've built onto our home. We built a business together. And, I mean, there's just been
built onto his home.
Yeah, there you go, his home. And believe me, when we argue, he lets me know it is his home.
Well, I got to tell you, this guy sounds like a first-class loser, And, it's up to you whether or not this is the type of situation that you want to live in. It doesn't sound anything that's appealing to me.
Now, wait a minute. He may not trust his ex-wife, but is he really a loser? I mean, he's protecting his own ass.
Oh, I think he's a loser. Having her sign over the deed or to the house. I mean, this is the mother of his children. He's not even going to share the ownership of the marital home. I think that's a little preposterous.
She was under no obligation to sign that quitclaim deed.
She wasn't.
Under no obligation to get married.
She was under duress in terms of preserving the custody of her children, at least unless she's, thinking that is what she had to do in order to preserve the custody of the children.
So if you were her attorney, would you say she was under duress and try to overturn whatever had been signed?
In a heartbeat.
And could you win?
I think so.
Really? There you go, Julie. This is Steve on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hello, Tom.
Hello, Steve.
How you doing?
Do you care, Steve?
I don't.
I didn't think so.
Mark, I have a question for you.
Sure.
It's regarding restraining orders. And the question would be, is it beneficial to you when you're in a situation of divorce to have a restraining order against the other person?
Well, it is if they're beating up on you or causing you some harm. Yeah, then it's a benefit. But just to have one for the sake of having one, I don't know what that does.
Well, I mean, if the judge sees that, are they more lenient towards you?
No, you have to look at what the reason is for the issuance of the order. I mean, are you the victim of some domestic violence?
Well, yeah, possibly.
So your wife is beating you up?
Well, I'm taking...
I got to tell you something. You're not convincing me. You're being very... it's unclear to me.
I have some evidence to prove it.
What is the evidence you have?
Well, the police have come, and I didn't put my wife in jail, and they know she was hitting me. And I can go get that report.
And how long ago was that?
A week ago.
Not very convincing.
Well, it's not convincing even if it's in writing from at the police department.
Why are you waiting a week to get the order?
No,
if you're in genuine fear of some harm from your wife, that she might hit you or beat you up again, why did you wait a week? I would do it that night or the next day. Or let's give you a little break, maybe the day after.
Okay, so it's worthless.
Get her to hit you again. Yeah, get her to hit you again. Maybe that will work.
Thank you, Steve.
1-800-5800-TOM.
Really?
1-800-5800-866.
I like the show, but I don't agree with everything, and I just want
But you can't stop listening. It's like a bad car wreck. All of a sudden, you see one, you stop on the highway. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Oh, God. Oh, the humanity. Oh, Jesus.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
The Tom Leykis Show. Our guest, Mark Baroness, his book, What Were You Thinking? Shannon on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
I got a question on my wife. When we split up, I noticed that she was, she was showing signs of doing meth and stuff, and then I talked to a few people and found out that she was. So I talked to her and told her that she needed to quit doing it. I was keeping the kids for a couple weeks, and I wanted her to quit doing it, but she didn't quit. And I didn't tell her that I still knew. But now with my lawyer, I told him that I want to, I'll put up the money, but I want the courts to have her take a hair follicle test, and I'll take one too if they want, because meth gets out of your system so quick, and I don't know if that's going to actually work or not. Well,
a court can certainly do that, and they can order an independent medical evaluation of someone, especially in a custody case like this. It would be something that would be extremely relevant. You, at the same time, could always take a hair out of her hairbrush and kind of avoid the problem that you're having. So, yes, it's something that you should absolutely pursue. Your lawyer should file some sort of a motion with the court to have that matter addressed.
Yeah, she has. She even has a psychologist right now that she's going to like 3 times a week, and she's on, I don't know, she got demoted at her job, but her family owns the company, so they still pay her the same. But the psychologist thinks she has anxiety, and that's not what it is. She's just getting high.
Well, call your lawyer.
Thanks a lot for the call. Now, are there some... Of course, it doesn't matter where you got married. It matters where you get divorced. Are there states where it's to your advantage to get divorced and states where you definitely don't want to get divorced?
Well, there are, but the problem is that you don't usually have control over that because the jurisdiction that is going to govern where you get divorced is going to be the last one where you cohabited as husband and wife. So unless
are there states you want to live in just in case things don't work out?
Well, I think the community property states are the worst. So I think there's 8 of those or 9 of those. I can't remember the exact number. There are other states which are equitable distribution states where the court has much more latitude in actually determining how the property is whacked up.
And that's to the advantage of the person who has more or the advantage of the person who has less?
Depending on the facts of the case, it can go either way. But if I was a husband, which I am a husband, what am I saying? If I was me, I would rather live in an equitable distribution state than a community property state.
The book is What Were You Thinking? The author, Mark Barondis. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, our email address is my name. It's tom@blowmeuptom.com. It's tom@blowmeuptom.com.
The Tom Leykis Show.